Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya, Excellency Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, President of the Republic of Mali, Honorable Ministers, heads of delegation, leaders of partner, regional and international organizations, business leaders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I begin by thanking you all for your presence today, most especially the heads of state. I'll try to be brief, but also bearing in mind that I have to try and give a speech that competes with Sophia's, a lady who visited us from so far away, packed in a bag, and only a bunch of wires, but making so much sense. So I do my best. I want to commend Smart Africa for organizing the Transform Africa Summit and bringing together an impressive range of partners, innovators, and policymakers. The participation of so many of Africa's ICT ministers is particularly significant. Let me take this opportunity to acknowledge Smart Africa's new Director General, Lassina Kone, and go ahead to also once again, as ever before, recognize Dr. Hamadou Toure for being in our midst and also being associated with the origin of this great idea. Thank you, Hamadou. I wish you every success in this critical Pan-African responsibility. We are in the era of the digital economy. Remaining behind is not an option anymore for Africa. It never was, but we thought or acted like it was. Is Africa ready to fully take part in the fourth industrial revolution? This is really the heart of the matter. And I want to suggest that we have only been waiting for ourselves. Economic transformation and prosperity require mastery of technology. Now is the time to build the necessary infrastructure, and skills in Africa. There is a great deal at stake for our continent, which is why Africa governments came together to establish Smart Africa in the first place, with the private sector as a key partner from the outset. I would like to emphasize a few key points about Smart Africa's role. First and foremost is the importance of keeping Africa together in this mission in terms of the digital agenda. Collaboration is the only way for us to navigate successfully through the complex global dynamics we have to face. There are always tendencies to want to marginalize or divide our continent for various reasons. We know better not to go along with this. Africa can only protect our people's interests and increase the size of our market through integration and cooperation. This is especially the case when it comes to harmonizing laws and regulations and ensuring that Africa's ICT infrastructure is managed in a sensible way. The emergence of a common African agenda on ICTs should not be a source of worry to anyone, but encouragement instead. It is long overdue, and in the end, great African unity will benefit both Africa and its partners globally. Digital transformation does not mean neglecting traditional manufacturing. Africa must be competitive in both. The African Continental Free Trade Area has now entered into force. We must keep Africa's industrialization and technology agendas in close alignment. Technology connects the world like never before. Access to knowledge has become much more equitable as a result. At the same time, let's not be empty vessels using broadband internet merely to consume the content and ideas produced by others. We are innovators and thinkers. We have our own products to sell, or we should have. We have our own stories to tell. Allow me to close with a happy announcement that our next host for the 6th Transform Africa Summit in 2020 will be the Republic of Guinea. We thank the President also, His Excellency, President Alpha Conde, for his strong support for Smart Africa. I welcome you once again, and I look forward to interacting with you in the next session. I wish you a happy stay in our country and good deliberations. I thank you for your kind attention.
A very big thank you to His Excellency President Paul Kagame for setting the tone for the conversation that we're about to have. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the format that we're going to take with this conversation is something that I call short, sharp, and to the point. And the reason why we're going to be short, sharp, and to the point and concise is that we do have time constraints. So we're going to have a few minutes of moderated conversations on the stage. I've had to quickly start taking away my nice-to-have questions and just really get to the core of the difficult questions. And also, we're going to be hearing from some special interventions, and these are going to be some of our partners that I will call on from the audience to answer a very specific question, which I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask them to answer that question in no more than 1 minute. Now, the beautiful thing about being a moderator is that you also have moderating superpowers. And what that means is that if that 1 minute starts feeling like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I will stop you. So please, let's work within the constraint that we have. I'm under strict instructions.
May I suggest the technical people sort out something? There are too many echoes and things are not being heard properly. Technical
team, if we could please make sure that everybody can hear. Yeah? And if anybody else is having an issue, please can you also just raise your hand so we know exactly where we can assist you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to get right into it, and I'm going to start off with you, President Kagame. You have ended your opening comment on a very clear challenge. You've said that we are innovators, we are thinkers. We cannot just be the consumers of what comes from elsewhere on the back of a digitalized global economy. What 3 things do you think are going to be absolute game changers that we would need to focus on now to accelerate the journey that we're already on? 3 things that would completely change the game and help us to move considerably faster.
Well, there are many things, but let's pick maybe a few. Realizing the digital agenda, which supports the broader African transformation agenda. We have to be clear about that. Second, there are a number of things you need once you have made that full realization. There is a requirement for resources to invest in the private capital that is out there that can be put to good use for the benefit of the private sector, but also for the benefit of our citizens. The next step is to make sure that the private sector cannot work alone. Therefore, they have to work in partnership with governments, which governments can also not work alone. And if you want to maximize on the resources, then you have to bring the 2 sides together, and each should do what best they know how. And the governments must also invest, especially in the area of digital infrastructure, especially the backbone, then on which the private sector can build for the last mile connectivity and therefore investments. Then you move again
Yeah.
With this, the investments have to result into things that are affordable, are accessible to our citizens.
Yeah.
So again, the regulators, the policymakers have to bear in mind that they have to put in place the kind of framework that will actually facilitate these investments, private, public investments, so they don't become too expensive. In the end, that cost is transferred to the consumers or the end users. So the policy, regulatory frameworks have to be very sensitive to this, and has to bear in mind this kind of collaboration. Maybe those are three, but I could go on and on and on, but well, later on you have to create, to invest in development of these digital skills, digital literacy, so that more and more of our citizens are actually making good use of these investments and are becoming a growing market, therefore, and justifying the large amounts of resources that have got to go into it. It's a broad thing, but I would rather follow that path, and I think it would be where I want to be.
So, Mr. President, a very clear path, but one that also seems to emphasize that this is the significance of partnerships, because different players are going to have to focus on different things. And I'll come to some of the issues that you raised, but one of the things, President Kenyatta, that I would like to bring to you, which President Kagame has raised, is this idea of being deliberate about investing in the infrastructure. Now, when we look at the case of Kenya, we're often told that Kenya is a breakout country, very clear, rapid advancements leading in a number of places in terms of digital transformation, but also constrained by infrastructure. And so, as you